A year after the first Doctor Who movie, apparently it was so received that they decided to make a second one right away. And since the Daleks were so popular, they just had to do the second ever big Doctor Who versus Dalek adventure. The Dalek invasion of Earth in 2150 AD. And it starts off pretty strong. First, we meet Tom, a constable played by the great Bernard Cribbins, aka Wilfred Mott, the 10th Doctor's final companion. He fails to stop a jewel robbery and goes to a nearby police box to call for help. Unfortunately, it's not the kind of help he was looking for. Yep, it's the TARDIS. And within is Peter Cushing, once again playing the Doctor, the young actress who played Susan, the kid from the previous film. And this time, instead of Barbara, a new actress is playing Louise, the Doctor's niece. Yep, the Doctor's got a lot of family, and we never see them, except for the ladies. In the year since the first adventure, the Doctor has considerably cleaned up the TARDIS. There are no more exposed wires. Now everything's covered with silver boxes and banks of computers, and it looks much more clean. Clearly, the Doctor has perfected the TARDIS design. Unfortunately, Tom is too woozy to do much more than sit in a chair while the Doctor dematerializes the TARDIS. He has no time to deal with jewel thieves. He's too busy being a time traveler. So, when the TARDIS rematerializes, Tom is a little miffed that he missed the jewel thieves by a little over a century. And at first, he's a little flabbergasted that they've ended up in 2150 AD, and even more flabbergasted to find that they've landed in a pretty lousy neighborhood. One that's basically reminiscent of World War II London, only instead of Germans flying around, it's an alien spaceship. Although, in my humble opinion, it looks more like a flying hamburger. Well, at least it did at first, but the design's grown on me. Unfortunately, the TARDIS gets blocked by some debris when Susan trips over a rebar, which causes a sort of domino effect. And before they can get any help, they find out just who is in the flying saucer. Yep, it's the return of the Daleks. These Daleks look more reminiscent of the classic series Daleks, with the blue spheres and the silver bodies. The only difference is some of them still have those pincers in place of toilet plungers that I neglected to mention the first time around. And their headlights are more pronounced and blue. And they have their own private army, Robo-Men, who, unlike in the serial, don't look like discount Cybermen. Rather, they look like true Gestapo jackbooted stormtroopers. At least the ones who remember to fix their goggles. The Doctor and Tom are quickly captured and brought aboard the Daleks' ship. Meanwhile, Susan and Louise hook up with some rebels who've been fighting the Daleks, but it hasn't been easy. The planet's been bombarded with meteors, attacked with cosmic rays. whole continents have been wiped out. It's looking pretty grim. As for the Doctor and Tom, well, their fate is even more grim. When the Doctor finds out that the cells they've been sequestered in are locked with magnets, he figures out a way to wedge a comb underneath the lock and open it. Unfortunately, the Daleks had planned for this. Anyone smart enough to get free is deemed worthy of becoming a lobotomized, living dead Robo-Men. And both the Doctor and Tom and some other poor schmuck nearly succeed in getting robotized. Luckily, some rebels attack with homemade explosives, which do take out several Robo-Men, but fail to stop the Daleks, and they're nearly all wiped out. Louise gets knocked out in a closet aboard the Dalek ship. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Tom manage to escape with another rebel. Oh, wait, scratch that. The Doctor and another rebel escape, and I'm doing it again. Louise and Tom get stuck aboard the ship. Now, Louise and Tom end up flying to Bedford, while Susan and a couple of the other rebels decide to make for Watford, although that was a mistake. It's crawling with Daleks. Meanwhile, the Doctor and a different rebel decide to leave London and go to Bedford. Everyone's basically converging on Bedford. Now, Susan did leave a message, but the Doctor missed it because it was written on a door, which was closed. Well, open at the time. And when it closed, that's when the message was revealed. Now, these Daleks, they're pretty ambitious. Their plan is basically to drill to the Earth's core in Bedford and use a bomb to eject the planet's magnetic core, because magnetism is their weakness. And the Doctor pretty much figures it out right away. Basically, it's a survival movie, and we see the best and worst of humanity in both the rebels and the fact that this one old guy who really didn't have much of a reason to protect Susan acts like a surrogate grandfather to her, even when trying to escape the Daleks. He really is a top-notch character. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Tom, and Louise run afoul of the worst of humanity, in the form of two ladies, one young, one old, the old one being played by the cave lady from the first Doctor Who serial, which was a nice surprise for me. They do take care of Susan and the crotchety old rebel for the night, but then give them up to the Daleks in exchange for food. And you can't really fault them. They're just trying to survive. And who knows how long they'll be useful to the Daleks and when they're going to get exterminated. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Tom, who have hooked up, end up running afoul of this slimy git who likes to trade shiny things for food. He disarms the doctor and his companion, even taunts them with a bit of food, offering them a can of soup, but then dumping it over when they reach for it. Then, when everyone hooks back up at the mine in Bedford, and they formulate a plan to divert the bomb the Daleks plan to use in order to turn the magnetic forces underground against the Daleks. When everyone leaves to go do their thing and the Doctor stays behind to keep planning, the slimy Git gives him up to the Daleks. Luckily, the Daleks are grateful in that they know to keep a human alive long enough to be useful, and don't exterminate him till after he realizes it's too late. Needless to say, the Git gets what's coming to him, because the Daleks have no loyalty to humanity. Score one for them. Or the Daleks, that is. Meanwhile, the Doctor, being branded the rebel leader, is trying to stall for time because the Daleks are about to enact their plan. The bomb is ready, everything's set, but luckily Tom manages to get inside the mine and divert the bomb into a different shaft. And once the Doctor manages to get the Robo-Men to rebel against the Daleks with a pretty simple counter order. Turns out the way to reprogram them is just speak into the right microphone. That's another weakness of the Daleks. They're too user-friendly when it comes to their stormtroopers. And with the distraction of the Robo-Men, which all perish, sadly, none of them can be saved, and the bomb detonating in just the right place to suck all the Daleks into the mine and into the shaft, and compressing them into a small blob. Even the Dalek spaceship is not immune. It crashes, and ultimately the humans are successful. And this time, no one stays behind. Louise, Susan, Tom, the Doctor, they all go back to the present, 1966. And the Doctor is even kind enough to drop Tom off a couple minutes before the robbery. So he's able to knock out all the bad guys and deliver them to police headquarters in their own vehicle. So happy endings all around. Dalek's invasion of Earth 2150 AD is far superior to the first Doctor Who movie. The technology, while still looking dated, is much more impressive. You believe that that's a functioning spaceship and that the TARDIS is a functioning vehicle. Once again, the Daleks are impressively scary. They really go slaughter happy. They're still using gas weapons, but it really is horrifying to watch the humans get gassed. The Robo-Men are impressive. Far less like characters in costumes and more like walking corpses. And when they talk, it's like they've literally lost their souls. Once again, Cushing is amazing as the Doctor, and I think more people need to recognize that fact. He was and will always be an amazing actor, and it's awesome to see uh, what could have been with Bernard Cribbins, because he was and will always be a heroic actor. Overall, this movie is a very satisfying less than 1.5 hours, and it should be recognized as the valuable piece of Who history that it is, especially if folks missed out on the original airing of the serial that inspired it. This is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, before you go looking to a police box for help, make sure it doesn't disappear with you in it, because sometimes the Doctor can't rewrite history the way he did. And never believe that the Daleks are masters of anything. Geronimo!